Hello. It was a grueling week at the Truth Commission in Gauteng this week. The Commission delved deep into the worst evils of our past, like the assassination of activists. In tonight's report, we look at the assassinations of David Webster, Abram Tiro, Bheki Mlangeni, Jeanette and Katryn Schoon, Ruth First and Dulcie September, and the bomb attack on Albie Sachs. And death in detention. The people the government told us over the years had slipped on bars of soap or jumped from high windows or committed suicide. The Commission heard of 3 of a long list of people who died in police cells. Remember Ahmed Timol, Neil Aggett, Abram Saloojee?
There's been a lot of evil. There's been a lot of evil in this country. It's being exorcised, but there's been a lot of evil.
But there was another evil in our past. Human rights violations inside the ANC's detention camps in Angola. We'll take a good look at that too tonight. Let's first go inside the cells of death.
In 1969,
there are about 7 people, including my father, Baba Tokovitsing in custody.
7 people, including my father, who died
And
in
how
custody.
cometh that such a thing should happen? Army Code, number 1, my father who passed away on the 4th of February 1969, Nicodemas Kgoathe. Solomon Mudipani, who also passed away on the 28th of February 1969. James Lengwe, who passed away on the 10th of March 1969. Caleb Mayekiso, who passed in June 1969. Jacob Maake, who also died in 1969. Ahmed Harold. All these cases, September 27th, 1969. Is that possible?
Detention without trial became a permanent feature of South African law in 1963. The General Laws Amendment Act allowed detention for 90 days, then 180 days. By 1990, 78,000 had been in custody, of whom 73 died. And when they died, cause of death was investigated and established by the courts. In 33 instances, inquests proclaimed these deaths suicides. Sometimes fairies are found falling from a window. Sometimes fairies are found falling down the stairs, is how poet Aesop Patel describes it. Suliman Saloojee, the law said, did just that, fell to his death from a 7th-floor window. He was 32, an attorney's clerk, who had been detained in July 1964. By September 9 of that year, he became a statistic, the 4th to die in detention. Rukaya Saloojee, his widow, learnt about fairies and falling the hard way.
In the meantime, everybody knew what happened to my husband, but I didn't, because maybe I didn't want to believe it. There was a press fellow by the name of Terry, and he said to me, Mrs. Saloojee, he says, I'd like a statement from you. So I said, Terry, how can I make a statement when I don't even know where my husband is? And I think he didn't think, he says, your husband is in the mortuary.
Then she learnt about the law the hard way.
On the inquest, when I did take that clothing, the inquest lasted about 5 minutes. And the magistrate, or whoever it is, when I went up to the dock, to the witness stand, I could only mention my name and where I stay and who was my husband. When I said I'd like to say something, I'd like to know why is there blood on my husband? Well, why was there blood on my husband's clothing? And the magistrate said that will be all.
J. Straydom. He was not in a position to conclude that any person was to blame for my father's death. And that surprised us.
Ben Kgoathe and his family had reason to be surprised by this inquest finding. His father, Nicodemas Kgoathe, also died in police custody 3 years after Saloojee. He was said to have slipped on a bar of soap while bathing. He sustained head injuries and developed pneumonia, the court said. This despite evidence by at least 2 doctors that Nicodemus had been tortured before his death.
The first evidence was given by Dr. P.G.A. Joubert, who was the district surgeon. He spoke how he saw when he examined my late father, his own findings. What were his findings? He found that my father had lots of marks, that he'd been whipped with a shambok. He would also been beaten with a battle of a belt on his body.
Now,
even the Dr. Joubert,
the deceased before
he'd also been told by my father before he died that he'd slipped from a soap. But when the doctor said, no, this couldn't have been, my father changed the statement.
By the time Ahmed Timol reportedly fell to his death from the 10th story of John Foster Square late in 1971, public disbelief in falling and slipping detainees developed a hard edge. A huge outcry and demand for a serious public inquiry into his death was launched. To this day, neither his mother nor his family believe he committed suicide in custody, rather that he was murdered.
They hit my son tremendously. They arrested him on a Friday and they killed him and said that he committed suicide. I want to know who assaulted him, and I want to know who lodged the complaint about my son. It took me quite a bit of difficulty to raise my children. It is 25 years now, and that I will not forget what happened. I ask the Almighty that I will not forget what happened and that I need to know who lodged the complaint and what happened. I will not forget what happened. I need to know.
So at the end of the day, while we don't know whether he was killed in detention or whether he actually took his own life, I think for myself the difference is not particularly substantial. What we do know is if he hadn't been detained, he wouldn't have died.
For Elizabeth Lloyd, partner and fellow activist colleague of Neil Aggett, who was found hanging from the steel bars of his prison cell in 1981, death was ultimately the objective of detention. Medical doctor and trade unionist, Aggett was the first and last white person to die in detention.
If you look at the reaction of the security police under those circumstances, their reaction was not so much to kind of feel bad about what they had done, but to be very angry about being caught out on it. And what we've seen since then is that deaths in detention have been consistently hidden. They couldn't afford another Neil Aggett.
Death squads, political assassinations, until recently mainly associated with South American dictatorships. Today, South Africa has that dubious honor. Black consciousness took root after the ANC and PAC went underground and into exile. The silence of the 1960s was transformed into a powerful new voice in the 1970s. Black consciousness spread among students, journalists, intellectuals, artists. Onkgopotse Abram Tiro, a Turfloop graduate, was one of the first SASO leaders to die for his belief in black pride. In 1974, he was assassinated by a parcel bomb after he had fled to Botswana.
They said to me, your son is dead. He tried to open a parcel and the parcel killed him. From there, I took initiatives to go to Botswana. I saw my son in pieces. The police from Botswana helped me a lot. They gathered all the pieces. Only a few pieces were left there, and they took that to the mortuary. Now I wanted to make arrangements for his funeral. We were a family together, planning all the funeral arrangements. And we asked the South African government to give us a permission to transport him to South Africa to bury him here. And they said no.
To this day, there is no clarity as to who ordered or delivered the parcel bomb.
I have a request. Can you please investigate who really killed my son? Or maybe God may help you and find him.
In April 1989, Wits anthropologist and human rights activist Dr. David Webster wrote a report on repression in South Africa. It contained details of disappearances and assassinations. He called it apartheid's ultimate weapon. On Workers' Day 1989, Webster fell victim to apartheid's ultimate weapon himself. His partner, Maggie Friedman, was there.
It was the 1st of May 1989, which is 7 years ago this week, and it was a public holiday, almost the first real Workers' Day. And David and I left the house early in the morning with our 2 dogs to go running in David's bheki. And we returned to the house at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And David was driving. He parked the car in our street in front of our house. And he got out of the car to go around to the back to let the dogs out of the car. And I was getting out more slowly on the passenger side. And I was aware of a car coming down the street. And then I heard what I thought was a car backfiring, and it accelerated down the street. And it only was afterwards I realized something was wrong when I saw that David was staggering, and he was holding his chest in the front. And he said to me, "I've been shot by a shotgun. Get an ambulance." So David obviously saw his killers. He saw the weapon that killed him. The chain of command, and hence responsibility for these illegal acts and conspiracies, reached high into the structures of the state and government, and certainly included cabinet ministers, military intelligence, the CCB, the South African Police, the State Security Council. I believe that David Webster's murder was ordered and planned from within state structures. So I call for the indictment and prosecution of the following people. Firstly, those immediately involved in the assassination. So the CCB Region 6 operatives, Wouter Basson, also known as Christo Brits, Stahlberger, Chappie Marie, Ferdy Barnard, Kalabuta, Slang Van Zyl. I would also have included Eugene Riley, who has since died a violent death, allegedly by suicide. Then secondly, those having responsibility and knowledge of the planning of the assassination. Magnus Malan, the Minister of Defence. Eddie Webb, the head of the CCB, who has been obliged to apply for amnesty for perjury in his own cover-up evidence. Joe Verster, the Managing Director of the CCB. Vidkop Badenhorst, the Chief of Staff Operations and Direct Superior of Eddie Webb. Further, I believe the following people have been involved in collaborating in the cover-up of information. Krapie Zengelbrecht, who told CCB members in detention not to talk about CCB activities. And Louis Harms, who was able to find that no hit squads operated out of Vlakplaas, and who, in my mind, steered his commission so firmly away from the evidence.
The list is much longer than Ongepotse Tiro and David Webster. Most of these assassinations were planned and executed by military and police death squads in Gauteng, like Vlakplaas and Daisy, its counterpart for foreign operations, and the CCB base on a small holding near Pretoria. Much is known about Vlakplaas and its commander, Colonel Eugene de Kock, now on trial on 121 charges of fraud and murder. De Kock decided to kill his Vlakplaas predecessor, Dirk Coetzee, who had spilled the beans on death squads and had to flee the country. The Vlakplaas men built a bomb in a Walkman and mailed it to Coetzee in Lusaka. Coetzee thought the parcel suspicious and refused to accept it. It was sent back to the man whose name was put on it as sender by de Kock's men, lawyer and ANC activist Bheki Mlangeni. Mlangeni and Coetzee had met earlier to talk about hit squad activities. On February 15, 1991, Mlangeni picked up the parcel from his office and went to watch a movie with his wife of 2 months, Sapati.
From there, we went to a tea room. We sat down there. He took out this parcel because it had been wrapped, but it was obvious that it was almost unwrapped, and there was a small box with cassettes. One of the box was written, "Evidence, Hit Squad." He said he's received this parcel. You might find that there's no evidence here that they are talking about. There's nothing in this cassette. So we took a taxi and we went home. When we arrived at home, he didn't even stay. I was undressing at that time. He just, as we connected the earphones.
Take your time.
I saw him connecting these earphones. He didn't hear me because the last thing I said to him, why doesn't he put it onto the hi-fi so that I could also listen? I don't even think he even heard a thing of what happened, what was in the cassette. Because within seconds, I heard a big explosion, big noise. I thought it was a gun. I ran away. I tried to come out of the window, and then I couldn't get out of the window, and I came through the door to see him. The last thing I saw, I just saw him falling down slowly. After the police were there, they were looking for a statement. When I came back, I just saw 2 ambulances, and I began to hope. I was confused. I completely confused at that stage that he had put on earphones. I thought this ambulance, as they were going out, he was also in one of those ambulances. When I went inside,
Stop for a while, I think.
my daughter-in-law came rushing and just said, "Bheki." I just said, "What's wrong with Bheki?" My daughter-in-law just said, "Mama, Bheki at the garage." I was surprised, what's this garage story about? I couldn't hear anything. I was feeling very ill. When I came out, they held me. They said, "Please don't go in there." I just skipped through their legs and went in. I found Bheki. He was in pieces. He was hanging on kidneys. He was all over. Pieces of him and brains, all of it was scattered around. That was the end of Bheki. The person who did this has been found. I want this person to come out, and this person is already on trial, is Eugene de Kock. What I'd like the commission to find out from him, I'm not clear how Bheki's name got involved as a sender in the parcel. Another thing that's not clear in my mind, when they sent this parcel to Dekotsi, as it was Eugene who claims he wanted to kill Dekotsi, he was an expert. He was an expert in making bombs. When we read about letter bombs, how could he have sent Dekotsi a parcel bomber, clever like him, an expert? Didn't he know that this thing could come back to Bheki? What I do want to find out, how did they get Bheki's name involved in this? Eugene de Kock says he's going to ask amnesty from you. I contest this. Eugene, when he did what he did, he knew. He knew that somebody would die. Today, I'm a widow.
I'm an outcast.
I'm an outcast in our society because I'm a widow. In our community, in our society. You are associated with all sorts of things when you're a widow. Because of a person who didn't think through when they were doing this. So that when this person comes to you to ask for amnesty, how do you forgive such a person? If I can find an answer to this question, how do you go about forgiving this person who is a cruel murderer, who killed a defenseless person, who had never killed anyone, a person who had never raped anyone, a person who had never committed any crime, was just fighting for people's rights, but without carrying a gun?
Parcel bombs have often been used by the security police in their war against the ANC, especially by their foreign division at Daisy, commanded in the 1980s by former Steve Biko interrogator Colonel Piet Goosen and super spy Major Craig Williamson. Williamson has admitted that he was responsible for 2 parcel bombs that killed 2 women and a 6-year-old child. Williamson has applied for amnesty at the Truth Commission. The security police wanted to kill ANC activist Marius Schoon. They sent a parcel bomb to his home in Angola. He wasn't at home when the parcel arrived, and his wife Jeanette opened it. It killed her and their daughter, Katryn. Williamson also admits killing leading ANC theoretician Ruth First, wife of Communist Party leader and later cabinet minister Joe Slovo. First was blown up in the Mozambican capital of Maputo in August 1982. Mozambique was an important hunting ground for South African death squads. This country nearly lost one of its most celebrated sons when a CCB unit, commanded by this man, Pieter Boertes, decided to kill academic Albie Sachs, today a constitutional court judge. Maputo, 7 April 1988. In a moment of darkness, Sachs loses his arm. 4 ribs are broken, his right heel fractured, his liver lacerated, his eardrums ruptured, his body full of shrapnel wounds. But he survives. Although Boertes has admitted complicity in the attack which was planned in this country, he has never been charged. Neither has the squad of CCB men who at the Harms Commission admitted they were involved in sabotage, conspiracy to murder, attempted murder and arson. But Pretoria's tentacles of death stretched far beyond the borders of the subcontinent. In March 1988, the ANC's representative in Paris, Dulcie September, was gunned down. Pretoria denied complicity, but 5 years later, a notorious South African gunrunner and police agent, Dirk Stoffberg, admitted that he had arranged September's assassination. Throughout the 1980s, most of the state's aggression was unleashed on the black youth of the country. In 1986, 26,000 people were detained. 40% of those were 18 years old or younger. At least 1,298 people died in political violence in the same year, a third of whom died at the hands of security forces. Young Benjamin Oliphant was constantly on the run from police. In December 1986, he was betrayed by a police informer. He was arrested. When his family went to look for him at the Clarksdorp police station, they were told that he had already been released. On their way home, they saw something which made them suspicious.
At Uraniaville, there's a spoor crossing that is between Jobetina and Klerksdorp. They were in the taxi on the right-hand side, and the police van was on the other side. When they peeped through the window, they saw a person in this van, and they realized it was Benji. His face was swollen. They came home running, and they said, "The police told us they've released Benji, but we saw him in the police van, and his face was swollen."
2 ministers who were close to the family informed them about his death. At the mortuary, police prevented them from going inside to identify his body. They were only allowed to view the head of the corpse through a window.
Through the window, you could see Benji's head. It was swollen. You don't know what was this protruding from inside his nose. You couldn't see whether was it the mouth or the chin, because it was just mixed up. His head was so swollen you could compare it to a head of a calf.
Cornish Makanya was arrested with 14 others in Lichtenburg in June 1986. He was 18 at the time and involved in student politics. He was taken to the police station.
They took this machine, connected these two cords, they put them on my head, over my hair. They poured water on me and put on this machine for a long time, and I continued to refuse talking. Another boy said to me, this Khefa doesn't want to talk. We must just kill this Khefa. They took these two cords. They put them on my private parts. After they put these cords on my private parts, they put this machine on. They put on this machine. I got torn underneath.
Sicelo Dlomo was a bright young activist, well known in Gauteng in the 1980s. Police were hunting for him long before his death in January 1988. His mother, Sylvia Dlomo Jele, began to fear for his life. But it seems that Sicelo too had a premonition about his fate.
I was referring to his father, said, my father, be strong. It may happen that I will die. I want you to know that whatever happens to me, you must be strong, pick up my spear, and continue my struggle. I was very sad. I was very upset. When he told me about his lack of security, I said, just this tonight, sleep here at home. And he said, you won't like to see the police killing me in front of you. So it will be better for me to go somewhere else so that you can only find my corpse, but not see them killing me. And he left home. And the following day, a police arrived at home. I could feel it. I could just sense it, that my child was gone. Because the police came with his pocketbook. I said to him, have you killed my son? The police said, why are you saying such painful things? I didn't kill him. I just heard people saying there's a young boy who's dead under a tree. I went to see this boy, and I found this pocketbook on him. And this police asked me to accompany him to see where the body was. I didn't agree. I didn't want to go with this policeman. I knew that killed him. There's a gentleman who's our neighbor. He took me by his van. He took me to where my child was lying. He was full of blood all over on his one side of his head. He was lying there. I told myself that was it. That was the end. He told me that this is what he was telling me, that I must always expect.
We carried out.
The names of some policemen keep coming up during the commission hearings. This is Warrant Officer Joe Mamasela. He has already confessed to having been part of the murders of 3 Port Elizabeth community leaders and Durban lawyer Griffith Mkenge. He was mentioned again by the relatives of 3 Mamelodi men who died in 1987. Jacob Maake, Andrew Makope and Harold Sefolo's bodies were packed with explosives and blown up by members of the hit squads. This week, the widows of Sefolo and Makope and the mother of Maake told of how the disappearance of their loved ones changed their lives. Mrs. Sefolo first heard about her husband's death when she read the newspaper City Press in January this year.
I would like to tell the Truth Commission that there's a man who arrived called Mama Sela. I've also read that in the 28th January newspaper. Mama Sela said he took him at Witbank. They took him to some place which I can't remember because I don't have the paper with me. And he said they tortured him and cut off his hands. They shot him and blew him up.
For Shoki Maake, sister of James Maake, knowing her brother's killers is not enough. She wants to meet Mamasela face to face.
We would like the commission to help us of showing us Mama Sela to come here and explain to us where did he kill this person, and the little property that they're still keeping of him, they must bring them to us. Would also like to rebury him so that we can also be able to go to a cemetery, to a grave of our loved one, like other people. We don't know if it's really true that they killed him. We don't know if he's alive or dead.
Andrew Makope regularly visited his brother in exile in Botswana. A friend of Andrew, Queen Skosana, was with him when he was abducted. To date, no one has been able to trace her. Church Street, Pretoria, 1983. Amanzimtoti, 1985. ANC bombs remind ordinary white South Africans there is war. The bomb that caused the biggest emotional outcry exploded in Church Street, Pretoria in the late afternoon of May 20, 1983. 19 people were killed and 219 injured. The ANC claimed responsibility. Aimed at military personnel, it was mainly civilians who were injured and killed. The 2 men who set the bomb also died in the blast. James Simpson worked in the building across the way from the blast and considers himself lucky to have escaped with minor injuries.
Can you
tell us what you expect of the Commission? I think that the people who are responsible for this should be apprehended, they should be brought to justice and be punished. That is my opinion. But you say that the findings have already been made, that the 2 people who planted the bomb have already been killed, they're already dead. Yes, but those are not the people who actually gave the order to plant the bomb.
Marina Geldenhuys was in her first job after leaving school with her life ahead of her. She was physically badly injured and suffered emotionally as well.
Ek het op 'n baie laat ouderdom seker eers 2 jaar gelede om
It was only about 2 years ago that I really went for psychiatric help. It did help me to some extent to really get over the worst of it. I would like to say that the guilty parties must be brought to justice and they must reveal their reasons and motives for this attack. I wasn't really politically aware at that time. From a very early age, I was confused as regards politics. We didn't really know what was right and what was wrong. And
how do you feel about the political situation now? At that point in time, you said that you were an innocent bystander caught in the conflict. How do you feel now, 13 years later?
The new government is of significance to me because it means that I can sit here today and tell my story. Earlier, this would not have been possible.
2 years later, the Sanlam Centre in Amanzimtoti was full of Christmas holidaymakers and shoppers when a bomb hidden in the arcade went off. The ANC claimed responsibility, and later a youth, Andrew Zondo, was arrested, charged and hanged for the offence. 5 people died in the blast. Among them, Corneo Smit. He was 8 years old. At the time, his father shocked many white South Africans by what he said.
I told the newspapers that I thought my son was a hero because he died for freedom, for people that was kan ek maar oorslaan Afrikaans vir mense wat onderdruk was. Menigte mense het my kwaadlik geneem daaroor. Hulle het gedink ek is 'n verraaier en
condemned me.
Maar
but
ek voel vandag nog so daaroor.
I still feel that way today. I feel that
ek dink min blankes sou ooit geweet het.
Few white people in this country would ever have found out what it was all about if somebody didn't have the courage to stand up and say this is for freedom. Everybody just branded the ANC as terrorists and never saw the other side of the coin.
Bishop Tutu's reply to his testimony reinforced the belief that reconciliation lies with the ordinary South African.
That the reason why we still have this hope that reconciliation will triumph in the end is because there are people like yourself. And we would like to say how much we appreciate what you've done.
And then there was the Potchefstroom bomb in October '88, planted in a building that housed the security police. Whose work was this? In the mind of Michael Meyer, it was an example of third force activities.
If it was an ANC bomb, my colleague, who was the previous witness, came to explain to me that they used a different kind of explosive device than that used by the military or the police. And I also received a letter from Brigadier in the regional court of the security branch. They said that they didn't know who were responsible for this attack. But if there was a policy of detonating bombs and committing sabotage, I believe that it falls within the ambit of this Commission's terms of reference to investigate this and to reopen the docket to be able to ascertain what the position now is.
It turned out to be a very appropriate name, Mbokodo, the stone that crushes, the name of the ANC security department while the ANC was still in exile in neighboring states. The infiltration of South African government spies led to paranoia, and the resulting rehabilitation camps became places of torture, humiliation, and disappearances. George Dube's first run-in with ANC security was when he complained about food and conditions in camp. He ended up in the infamous Quadro camp at Kibashe in Angola under suspicion of being a spy.
We're doing hard labor, that you would work with a pick or a shovel from morning to sunset, or else you chopping wood from morning to sunset. Hot as it is in Luanda, I think you know that it's a hot climate. Then, after all, we don't have water to wash. We don't have a pump here. The water comes with the tank. It's for the officers, for cooking and for washing. We used to spend a month or two without washing. We were being beaten almost every day, working there. We were always swollen eyes and swollen mouths, and swollen buttocks. Those were being beaten with these sticks of coffee trees. So I was taken to that room about 11 o'clock. There I was beaten at night. I was beaten, my brother. They told me to strip. They told me to strip my clothing off and remain with an underwear. I did so. They lie on your stomach and pick your legs up like this. Shoes, the boots out. Pick my legs up. Then they hit me with the electric cord under the feet there. Then my feet were cut like I was being cut by razors.
Kunyamane Ranyaka was an MK cadre who disappeared mysteriously. His brother, Molekwane, has received conflicting statements from the ANC and is still seeking answers.
I'm bitter, very bitter. I know our people, how they think, they mystify the ANC. They must separate, the quest for democracy from irresponsible people. I'm not questioning the ideals of democracy. I've sacrificed my youth for that. 1992, when I came back for the first time from exile, when I was here for a brief moment, we tried to go to Shell House. These people, they acted the way I knew they act, because I was in Tanzania. I know how ANC officials act. You see, if you are a rank and file person in the ANC, you're nothing. You see, we used to call ourselves in Tanzania rank and swine. You'll forgive me for saying that. That's why I was not surprised.
Towards the end of the third week of the Truth Commission hearings, journalists wondered how these two men, who sit and listen to every word of disturbing evidence, cope.
The Archbishop and I are the only two that are attending every day of every hearing for the 4 weeks. So we probably are feeling it a little bit more.
But it's rough. It's rough.
That was the end of tonight's special report. Our team moves with the Truth Commission to KwaZulu-Natal on Tuesday, and our appointment with you is next Sunday at 6:45. Good night.